A homeless little girl with nothing but a single piece of bread changed the life of a millionaire who had already lost everything. He had wealth, power, and success, but inside, he was completely broken. And then, one small act of kindness from that little girl did what money never could. It healed him. This story will make you believe that even the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever. It was a cold afternoon, and the city felt unusually quiet. The kind of silence that hides 1,000 untold stories. The wind moved gently through the streets, carrying dry leaves along the pavement. Shops were open, cars passed by, people walked with purpose, but somehow, everything felt distant, disconnected, as if the world was moving, but no one was really seeing each other. On a busy street corner, near an old iron bench with chipped paint, a young girl stood barefoot. Her clothes were worn and slightly oversized, her sleeves covering most of her hands as if she was trying to keep warm. Her hair was loosely tied, a few strands falling across her face. She looked small against the vastness of the city, but her eyes held something rare, kindness. Despite everything she lacked, there was no anger in her expression, no bitterness, just a quiet patience, as if she had accepted life the way it was, yet still hoped for something better. People passed her without a glance. Some noticed but quickly looked away. Others pretended she didn't exist at all. It was as if she had become invisible, just another forgotten soul in a crowded world. Then, the soft hum of an expensive engine broke through the silence. A sleek black luxury car slowly pulled over near the sidewalk. Its polished surface reflected the fading sunlight, standing in sharp contrast to the worn-out surroundings. The door opened, and a man stepped out. He was dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, his shoes spotless, his watch gleaming. Everything about him spoke of success, power, and wealth, but his face told a different story. His eyes were tired, not the kind of tiredness that sleep could fix, but something deeper, a heaviness that came from carrying pain for far too long. His expression was distant, as if his mind was somewhere far away from the world around him. This was Adrian Cole, a millionaire known for building a business empire from nothing. People admired him, envied him, and respected him, but no one truly knew him, and no one saw the loneliness he carried every single day. Adrian closed the car door and began walking down the sidewalk, his steps steady but slow. He didn't notice the people around him. He didn't notice the city. And at first, he didn't notice her either, until he felt a small tug on his sleeve. He stopped, slowly. He turned around. Standing there was the little girl. Up close, he could see how fragile she looked. Her bare feet were slightly dirty from the pavement, her hands trembling in the cold. But her gaze was steady and sincere. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, but filled with genuine concern. Adrian blinked, caught off guard. For a moment, he didn't understand the question. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice low, confused. The girl tilted her head slightly, studying his face as if she could see something no one else could. "You look sad," she said gently. Then, without hesitation, she extended her small hand toward him. In it was a tiny piece of bread, slightly dry, clearly not much, but it was all she had. "You can have this." Time seemed to stop. Adrian stared at the bread, then at her. Out of everything he had wealth, power, success. No one had ever offered him something so pure, so selfless. A girl who had nothing was offering everything she had. And in that quiet moment, something inside him shifted. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't feel like a millionaire. He just felt human. Adrian had built an empire from nothing years ago. He was just a young man with ambition, long nights, and a dream bigger than his circumstances. He worked harder than anyone around him, sacrificing sleep, comfort, and even time with the people he loved. Slowly but surely, success followed. One deal turned into 10, 10 turned into a company, and before long, he had everything most people spend their lives chasing: money, power, recognition. But along the way, he had lost something far more valuable: his joy. At first, he didn't notice it slipping away. Life was busy, fast, and full of goals. There was always another milestone to reach, another challenge to conquer. He told himself it was all worth it for his family, for his wife, for his daughter. They were his world, the reason behind every late night and every risk he took. He promised himself that one day, when everything was stable, he would slow down. He would spend more time with them. He would finally enjoy the life he worked so hard to build. But that one day never came. Years ago, everything changed in a single moment. A tragic accident, a phone call in the middle of the night, and just like that, they were gone, his wife, his little girl, gone from his life forever. From that day on, Adrian stopped living, he only existed. His world, once filled with laughter and warmth, became silent and empty. The house that used to feel alive now echoed with loneliness. The success he once celebrated now felt meaningless. So he buried himself in work. Work became his escape, his distraction, his shield against the pain he didn't want to face. His life turned into a routine: work, money, success, repeat, day after day, year after year. But happiness? Gone, standing there now, on that quiet street, staring at the little girl in front of him. Something inside Adrian began to crack. It wasn't loud or sudden. It was subtle, like a wall he had built over the years, slowly beginning to break apart. Why would you give this to me? He asked, his voice softer than before. He looked at the small piece of bread in her hand, then back at her face, trying to understand. The girl simply smiled. It wasn't a forced smile or one expecting anything in return. It was pure, honest. Because you need it more than me, she said. Those words hit him deeply. More than me. Adrian felt his chest tighten. How could she say that? He had everything, and she had almost nothing. Yet somehow, she saw something in him that no one else did. Something broken, something hurting. Adrian opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in years, his emotions caught up with him. His eyes filled with tears. He quickly looked away, trying to hold himself together, but it was too late. The pain he had buried for so long was rising to the surface, all because of a little girl, and a simple act of kindness. After a moment, he took a deep breath and looked back at her. "What's your name?" he asked gently, his voice almost trembling. "Lily," she replied softly. The name lingered in the air. Adrian nodded slowly, as if trying to hold onto that moment. "And where are your parents, Lily?" he asked, more carefully this time. For the first time, her expression changed. She hesitated. Her eyes dropped to the ground, and her fingers tightened slightly around the piece of bread. "I don't have anyone," she said quietly. The words were simple, but they carried a weight far beyond their size. Adrian felt something shift inside him. Those words echoed in his mind again and again. "I don't have anyone." In that moment, he realized something powerful. He wasn't the only one who had lost everything. Standing in front of him was someone who understood that pain all too well. Instead of walking away, Adrian did something unexpected. For a moment, he stood there, caught between his old to ignore, to move on, and something new, something unfamiliar pulling him in the opposite direction. Then, quietly but firmly, he spoke. "Come with me," he said. Lily blinked, surprised. She looked at him carefully, as if trying to understand his intention. People had passed her all day, some throwing coins, most not even noticing her. But no one had ever asked her to come with them. There was hesitation in her eyes, but also trust. Slowly, she nodded. Adrian led her down the street to a small cafe nearby. It was warm inside, filled with the soft hum of conversation and the comforting smell of fresh food. Lily paused at the entrance, clearly out of place, her small hands gripping the edge of her jacket. "It's okay," Adrian said gently. They sat down at a corner table. A waiter approached, slightly confused by the contrast between them, but Adrian didn't hesitate. "Bring us something warm." "And a full meal," he said. Minutes later, food arrived: fresh bread, soup, and a warm plate of rice and vegetables. Lily stared at it for a second, almost as if she couldn't believe it was real. "Go ahead," Adrian encouraged softly. She began to eat, slowly, carefully, not rushing, not grabbing, just taking small bites, as if she was trying to make it last as long as possible. Adrian watched her in silence. Every movement told a story. The way she held the spoon, the way she paused between bites. It was clear that food like this wasn't something she experienced often, and for some reason, that realization hit him harder than anything else that day. "Do you go to school?" he asked after a moment. Lily shook her head. There was no complaint in her expression, no frustration, just acceptance. "Do you want to?" he asked. This time, her reaction was immediate. Her eyes lit up. "More than anything," she said, her voice filled with a kind of excitement he hadn't heard before. That single answer stayed with him. More than anything, that night, Adrian returned to his large, quiet home, but something felt different. He couldn't focus on work. He couldn't distract himself like he usually did. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily, her small smile, her hopeful eyes, the way she held onto that simple dream of going to school. Her kindness, her strength, her hope. It stayed with him. And then it hit him, something shocking, something he hadn't felt in years. This little girl had given him something he thought was gone forever, a reason to care again. Adrian sat up in bed, staring into the darkness. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel empty. He felt restless, like something needed to be done, and by morning he had made a decision. He got dressed quickly and went straight back to the street where he had met Lily, but when he arrived, she was gone. The bench was empty, the street looked the same, but she wasn't there. A strange feeling of panic rose in his chest. He walked faster, looking around. "Have you seen a little girl about this tall?" he asked a shopkeeper. The man shook his head. Adrian kept searching. He checked nearby alleys, corners, and shops, asking anyone who might have seen her. Minutes turned into hours. The more he searched, the more anxious he became. Why did this matter so much? He didn't fully understand it himself, but he knew one thing: he couldn't just lose her like that. Just when he was about to give up, his eyes caught a familiar figure. There she was, sitting quietly near the same bench, exactly where he had first found her. Relief washed over him so strongly that he almost laughed. He walked toward her, trying to steady his breath. "I was looking for you," he said. Lily looked up at him and smiled. Not surprised, not confused, just calm. "I knew you'd come back," she said, and in that simple moment, Adrian realized maybe this wasn't just coincidence. Maybe this was the beginning of something much bigger. Adrian took Lily under his care. 81st. It felt like a simple decision, something anyone in his position could have done. He arranged a safe place for her to stay, made sure she had proper clothes, regular meals, and most importantly, a chance to go to school. But deep down, Adrian knew this wasn't just charity. This was something more. The first time Lily stepped into his house, she paused at the door, her eyes wide with wonder. The place was huge, elegant, and silent. "Is this all yours?" she asked quietly. Adrian nodded, but for the first time, instead of pride, he felt something else: emptiness. "Now it's yours too," he said gently. Lily stepped inside slowly, as if she was afraid the moment might disappear. She ran her fingers along the walls, looked at the furniture, the lights. Everything was new to her. But what Adrian noticed most wasn't her curiosity. It was how quickly she brought life into a place that had felt frozen for years. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Lily started school. 81st. She struggled. Catching up wasn't easy, but she never gave up. She stayed up late studying, asked questions, and worked harder than anyone else in her class, and slowly, she began to shine. Her teachers noticed her determination. Her classmates admired her kindness. She didn't just learn, she grew, and through it all, she never forgot where she came from. But something unexpected happened along the way. Lily didn't just change her life, she changed Adrian's too. The house that once echoed with silence began to fill with laughter. Simple things like her excitement over small achievements or the way she told stories about her day brought a warmth Adrian hadn't felt in years. She would sit beside him during dinner and talk endlessly, sometimes about school, sometimes about dreams. "Today, I learned something new," she would say with a smile, and Adrian would listen, really listen, something he hadn't done in a long time. Slowly, the walls he had built around his heart began to break down. He started smiling more, speaking more, living more. Lily reminded him what it meant to feel again. Months turned into years. Lily grew into a bright, kind, and determined young girl. Her confidence increased, her dreams became clearer, and her heart remained just as pure. One evening, as they sat together after dinner, Lily seemed unusually quiet. Adrian noticed immediately. "What's on your mind?" he asked. She looked at him, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "Can we help other kids like me?" she asked softly. The question hung in the air. Adrian leaned back, surprised. "Why do you ask that?" he said. Lily looked down at her hands. "Because I know how it feels," she said. "To be alone, to be hungry, to feel like no one sees you." She looked up again, her eyes filled with sincerity. "If you hadn't helped me, I don't know where I'd be." There was a pause, then she added, There are so many kids out there. Just like me, that question changed everything. Adrian felt something shift inside him again, but this time, it wasn't pain. It was purpose. He looked at Lily and smiled, a real smile, the kind he hadn't shown in years. Let's do it, he said, and just like that, a new journey began together. They started a foundation. At first, it was small. They helped a few children, providing food, shelter, and access to education. Adrian used his resources, and Lily gave her time, her heart, and her understanding. But something incredible happened. Lily's story began to spread. People heard about the little girl who once had nothing and how she was now helping others. They were inspired. They wanted to be part of something meaningful. Donations started coming in. Volunteers joined. The small effort began to grow, and before they even realized it, what started as a simple idea turned into something extraordinary, a movement of hope, all because one little girl chose kindness when she had nothing at all. Years later, Adrian stood in front of a large building filled with children laughing, learning and dreaming. The sun shone brightly over the wide entrance, where voices of joy echoed through the open halls. Children ran across the courtyard, some carrying books, others playing games, their laughter filling the air with life. It was a place full of hope, a place that once existed only as a simple idea, a dream born from a small moment on a quiet street. Now, it stood tall and real. At the entrance, a sign caught the light. Millie's Hope Foundation. Adrian stood still, taking it all in, the sound of laughter, the sight of children who once had nothing now smiling, learning, growing. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Years ago, his world had been silent, empty, and broken. No amount of money had been able to fix that emptiness. But standing here now, everything felt different, everything felt full. He turned his head slightly and looked beside him. Lily stood there. No longer the small, fragile girl he had met on the street, but a confident young woman. She carried herself with strength and grace, yet her eyes were still the same, kind, warm, full of compassion. She watched the children with a soft smile, as if she saw herself in each one of them. Adrian felt a deep sense of pride, but more than that, gratitude. You changed my life, he said quietly. His voice was calm, but filled with emotion. Lily turned to him, surprised for a moment. Then she gently shook her head. No, she said softly. We changed each other. There was a quiet understanding between them. And no need for long explanations, because they both knew the truth. What started as a simple act of kindness, a small piece of bread offered by a girl who had nothing, had become something far greater than either of them could have imagined. It wasn't just about helping one person anymore. It had become a movement. Over the years, Lily's Hope Foundation had grown beyond that single building. It reached cities, communities, and places where children once felt forgotten. Thousands of children were given food, shelter, and education. But more importantly, they were given a chance to dream, a chance to believe, a chance to build a future they once thought was impossible. Adrian looked around again, watching a group of children studying together under a tree. For the first time in his life, his success felt meaningful. He was no longer just a millionaire known for wealth and business. He was a man with purpose, a man who had found something far more valuable than money. And Lily, she was no longer the barefoot girl standing on a street corner, invisible to the world. She had become a symbol of hope, a voice for those who couldn't be heard, a light that brought warmth into places filled with darkness. But despite everything, she remained the same at heart. Humble, kind, grateful. As the sun began to set, its golden light spread across the building, casting long shadows that seemed to tell a story of transformation. Adrian took a deep breath. If someone had told him years ago that his life would change because of a small act of kindness from a stranger, he wouldn't have believed it. But now he knew better, because sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest power. Sometimes the people we least expect become the ones who save us. Final message. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can create the biggest change. A simple gesture, a kind word, a helping hand. It might seem small to you, but to someone else, it can mean everything. You never truly know the impact of what you do. And you never know, the person you help today might be the one who saves you tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Take a second to think, what if one small act of kindness from you could change someone's entire life? Hit like, share this story, and subscribe for more powerful stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us what truly matters, because sometimes being kind is the greatest power you have.